Welcome to Stormwatch by Grey Noise Intelligence. Each week we drop the latest info on what's happening at Grey Noise and Census, take a look at a roundup of important and timely cybersecurity topics, toss out some expert opinions, and drop the occasional conspiracy theory. I'm back from my fam's Acadia holiday, and on today's pod, it's turtles, I mean AI, all the way down as we explore the server side of Apple Intelligence. Then slide down a slippery slope of AI hallucinations, or is it just all BS? AI lying is also tossed in for good measure, and we shatter a common misconception of how ultramodern LLMs are trained. We then take a super deep dive into the CVE 2024-4577, a PHP vulnerability that we both, Census and Grey Noise, just happen to do amazing content blogs on. And so we'll give you some of that as well. We're not going to do a shameless self-promotion as a result. And no episode is complete without our usual tool time, tags roundup, and Kev spelunking. But before I, introduce my esteemed co-host and we do our normal thing, I figured everyone would like to have a slideshow of my Acadia vacation. So let's go through all what. No, I'm not going to do that to you guys.
Absolutely not.
Honestly, I'm kind of here for it.
But what I will do, I do have to put some epic cuteness up because 2 years ago we got a picture of Benjamin, my number 2.1, in a lobster bib in our favorite place to go in Acadia, and we actually got one of number 2.2 this time around too, and they are just the most adorable. That's all you guys had to see that. I had to do that. And also, before I introduce the co-hosts, I did listen to last week's pod, and it was a very good pod. Given that I tend to be the person that does the leading of this thing, I figured it would be good to do a report card on how my co-host did last time.
I don't like this at all.
So Himija, A+, especially
No.
right towards the end, Himija had a really good thing that caused you all to do a deep dive, and I thought that was great, really good closer for that on there. Emily, astute observation.
Don't like this already.
Astute observations as usual, really good commentary as usual, great analysis, just perfect. And Glenn's satisfactory. You did great. It was fine, but
Is that how they do grades in Maine?
Schemes. What?
Yeah, thank you, Emily.
Wait, we went from letter scale to satisfactory.
Well, I did want to put F.
I expect more from the chief data scidentist VP of labs.
Well, see, the reason why and the reason for this, Glenn, you didn't let Himija talk. That was the big thing. You didn't let her talk, and I don't know why.
I didn't let her talk. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's my big thing on there. And also, before we go into our normal thing, I just want to make sure, in case nobody is not aware, there's a heat dome thing going on. Glenn sent all of the heat, all of his hot air from Texas.
Y'all are so weak.
Up here, and
I know,
so this
they're
is
it's going to be 80, and I'm like, okay, well, welcome to 9 a.m. But
yeah.
So just be careful out there. It's gonna be a pretty hot couple of days and probably into next week. Oddly enough, in my town, my tiny little town, the cooling centers are already open for the next 3 days, which is not a good
That is
sign.
wild.
It's actually not great.
I think ours open. Well, I know that air conditioning is not as common there, or I assume it's not. But here, I think cooling centers open at 105 or 10.
Wow. Yeah, so it's supposed to get to 100 the next couple of days here. So I think that's why they
That does suck.
Yeah, it does. And we do a lot of more older folks up here than you guys probably do.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So we are not here to talk about heat domes or whatever.
Hot is hot.
Let us start with Emily. Emily, how are you doing today, Emily?
I am here today, which is a win.
Okay. I think we're all about that. We're all about that.
Yeah, it's gonna be great today.
So if you had to be trapped in a TV show for a month, which one would you choose?
I thought about this for a long time, and I'm gonna go with the Golden Girls because,
good one.
I don't know, just what a wonderful show, but also I don't know, for retirement age women just kind of vibing in Miami in those years. I love that, and they're progressive, so I feel like they'd be very fun. I don't know.
Glenn's gonna steal this one too. Oh no.
No, well, actually,
this is a good answer.
I was worried that Glenn, you and I might have the same answer, so I had to think really deeply about this. But yeah, definitely Golden Girls.
I did do a rewatch or not a rewatch. I did early pandemic when everyone was just binging everything. I watched Golden Girls start to finish for the first time.
It's so good.
It's one, it's so good. Two, it's highly depressing because a lot of the issues that they do touch on, no change.
I
It'll
mean,
change.
I like to think of it as very progressive for the time. Like they were talking about issues, I think, at
It
that
would be
time when it
progressive
wasn't.
today.
Well, sure, which is
But
also
then it was like they were way out in left field. Yeah.
yeah, and I love that. So yeah,
Yeah. It is very cool. Yeah, that's a good camaraderie. I wouldn't mind having a situation like that. I mean, my dream is to live in a retirement home, so
That's actually
wait,
my
really?
dream for you too.
Right.
That's right now.
not like a okay, never mind, that's too regular. Like a center
Uh,
everyone
Glenn, are
drives
you okay?
and like, you know.
so Glenn, are you in fact coming to us from Mexico? I noticed yesterday you were trying to escape to Mexico to seek asylum there or something, right?
No, I'm back home. I'm back home. I did take a little break, spent the day at the lake. It was pretty great. Oh wow, that was that was accidentally rhymey. But no, it was a very, very, very welcomed day of not working.
So if you had to be trapped in a TV show for a month, which one would you pick?
Yeah, so much different answer for much different reasons. I don't know if anyone watches the show Billions, but it's over now. I was obsessed with it, mostly for many reasons, including it's well, like, it's a bunch of rich people problems, but there's so much drama, so much like political fighting, so much power fighting, so much backstabbing. Like you don't actually know if you're rooting for the bad guy or the more bad guy in it. And it's a big game of like a political chess. I don't know. I really liked it. I think it'd be fun. But since it would be a month, it would be fun for a month. It would not be a fun life. So
I
I
was
just
gonna
took
say
the
that sounds
like
exhausting.
yeah, so I took like that lifestyle plus like those high stake battles for 1 month. Yeah, that'd be fun. But then I'm out because I'd be tired and probably not survive.
Cool, cool. And all this is made possible by our amazing Overwatch Ashley. Ashley, if you were stuck in a TV show for a month, which one would it be?
Oh, go to space. That's
Oh
cool.
yeah, Star Trek or Park. Oh wow,
Much different.
those are very different actually.
Little Leslie Nope. Yeah.
It's very cool.
And Bob.
Most I'm gonna
It's
guess
gonna be
most
something
people.
we've not heard of, Emily.
Yeah,
It's gonna
yeah,
be something.
probably yeah. So most people don't know like that. There's this thing called Zatoichi, and Zatoichi was a series that like he was a featured swordsman in a blind swordsman in a series of movies made a long time ago in Japan, but they actually turned it into a TV series as well. And I would do almost anything to be in that for a month, hang around with Zatoichi for a month.
I don't have enough information to even ask a question about.
I like how we're just slow nodding. Yes. That does
So
sound
Bob
interesting.
wants a sword?
That's what I'm
Uh,
hearing.
it's like you should look at one of the and we were
Bob
talking.
definitely owns a sword already.
I have
There's a
like
sword in Bob's house.
I actually have his Zatoichi sword as well. So
Yeah. That's not
Okay.
that doesn't surprise any
you're
of
not
us, I
surprised
don't
by that.
think. No.
Cool. All right. Well, we also, as you all know, we are everywhere. So like, subscribe, mash the comment button, all the thing. Yeah. See, Frank, look at this. There we go.
Don't
Zatoichi
support
is
him,
fantastic. Thank
people.
you, Frank. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate that. So yeah, mash
Oh,
all the things, leave comments, like snide remarks about me and everything. It's gonna be great. And I want to start off first. We're not going to deep dive into this, but I do need, since you all did a fantastic job last week, like all jokes aside, the Microsoft recall has been recalled. So your segment on it last week was great, but after that, we have a little addition to a blog post that one of the
the
Microsoft VIPs
recall,
did.
rollout recall was
Yeah,
recalled.
and like what I find most beautiful about the recall of recall is how well the VP lied in these 3 paragraphs. It is just phenomenal. I probably use ChatGPT to help lie, most likely, but
Copilot.
basically, yeah, we're going to have our insiders work with us on this. Like Microsoft, it's that I think everyone knows about the Microsoft Insider Program. Basically, it's early release stuff if you want to help Microsoft test things, and they're gonna let their trusted insiders, like work out all the kinks before they release this upon the world. This thing that nobody actually wants onto the world. So I just find it funny that the recall was recalled. And we are now going to keep on the AI focus, as we mentioned earlier in the show. This random picture. There's lots of robots and AI. If you like go to Google images search or whatever now, like I don't generate the images, but there's a lot of these images out now. And did you always cancel each other out? It would be great if they did though, didn't it? Like that way recall wouldn't even exist. So that'd be awesome. I want to say something nice about Apple. I don't always say nice things about Apple. It is the primary OS that I use, and I think a lot of us use. But one thing that didn't get talked about a lot when Apple did their whole spiel on Apple Intelligence the other week was the server side of it. And there's a whole server side of this because they're going to do some server side processing of things for whatever is going to be responded to on the systems that you have. So there will be a lot of local AI, but there's also going to be like a lot in the server space. And I just wanted to kind of run through some of the things Apple is doing that I think pretty much every other like vendor should do, like especially like the Fortinets and all the other like remote access vendors out there. So what they're promising to do is these servers will use stateless computation on personal user data. Basically, request goes to the thing, it does the fulfillment of the request, and it forgets everything. They're going to have a bunch of statements on what they're going to guarantee from a security and privacy, and they're going to be technically enforceable. No external components, no privileged access on these systems. There will be no privileged runtime access at all on these systems. I don't know how they're going to do that since it's based on like Mac OS and iOS. But there will be no way to bypass any of these things. There will be no way to target specific users' data. Verifiable transparency. So, like the security researchers, like the community that listens to us and extended, they'll be able to verify all these things, and that matches all the promises that are in there. It's again their own hardware. They're not relying on any third parties, primarily because Apple hates NVIDIA. So there's gonna be a whole bunch of things that they have on there. Hardened operating system with a very narrow attack surface, end-to-end encryption from like from when you put something into a prompt to it goes to the server and comes back. So in theory, only the processor part can actually see anything. Code signing, sandboxing, and secure data handling. Data is encrypted, deleted after use, memory is regularly recycled. How they're going to do no remote shells or debugging is going to be interesting. There's going to be audit logs and metrics that can be reviewed independently if necessary. They're going to promise to use a hardened supply chain, which is kind of amazing because most other vendors aren't going to do that. There'll be some transparency log, which I need to read a bit more about. Apple needs to provide a bit more information on that. And they're going to publish all the software images so that researchers can do verification on these. And there's going to be a bounty program so that like if someone does find a flaw, it can be fixed and you can get rewarded for actually going to do that. So I wanted to kind of bring that down and just I was floored like after reading that Apple blog post, because if they make good on all those promises, they're they're doing something that no other LLM vendor, like whether it's Perplexity or ChatGPT proper or whatever, no one's doing this. And I think it's kind of amazing personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I feel like this blog, it is very long, but I would highly suggest going and checking it out. I mean, I feel like Apple kind of like came out swinging with this one in some ways. And I think those last 2 points for me, the published images for researchers to kind of poke at, and then also the bounty program, to me really solidify kind of that commitment to putting their money where their mouth is, sort of. So I'm excited about this, like cautiously optimistic. It feels like they're trying to get in front of the problems that will inevitably come with this, and I'm excited about that.
Apple's had, they have a good. This is not necessarily meant to be a diss. So, but Apple's had like a really good marketing team around the privacy side, and they do have a much more privacy centric focus than other large uh, technology companies. But they've also had missteps, as far as especially with rollouts or new features that have raised a lot of probably rightfully so criticisms from privacy groups. So I wonder if because Apple's kind of always also operated on the model of like we're not going to be first, but we're going to quote do it well, that the implicate or the side effects from their previous kind of privacy missteps as far as like what they push and when they push it, combined with what we've already seen and observed in the AI space for privacy and just like prompt injections or remote code execute. Like, there are a lot of vulnerabilities that just are not well understood yet. So hopefully, like, this means they are coming together with the lessons learned of internal and external missteps and actually rolling this out. Because, like you were saying, Emily, I too am very cautiously excited about what this, at least what the spirit of what they're putting out is. And also, like, I do have for right or wrong, I do have much more confidence in Tim Cook than a lot of other CEOs in the tech space. So, like, I want to believe it. We will see how it goes. But man, that would be awesome and really a game changer for when, especially, every government supply, like, everyone's trying to use AI, mandated or by choice or by efficiencies or by experimentation. So, like, this could really, really have positive effects on the whole field. So I would be curious, like, what are the other vendors going to respond with when they see this? I'm assuming they're going to say it can't work that way. Like, there's going to be a reason that they do it the way they do. So it's probably going to be like, it can't work that way. Um, and then my last point is the supply chain is really cool. Like,
Yeah.
what if we started having other vendors use words like hardened supply chain or like an organic sticker on your software that means, like, we've triple checked this. We didn't just import the latest update to, curl or whatever, right? Like, I don't know. It's kind of neat.
I mean, it would be great if certain VPN providers, like appliance providers, weren't using 12-year-old.
VPNs are fine.
Yeah,
There's no
I
problems
mean,
with VPNs.
just saying.
So you did bring up an interesting point, Glenn, regarding government use of AI and I was just kind of thinking as you were talking about like and maybe this is an unfair comparison, but like the deep contrast right now between Microsoft and Apple and kind of how their paths continue to diverge in this world of like, how do we how do we like really harness the power of AI to be kind of buzzwordy for a second. And I am curious what's going to happen over the next few years as Apple leans into this direction. Like, I know Microsoft is fairly entrenched, like in government spaces in a lot of ways. And I'm curious if we'll start to see folks sort of go more toward Apple because of moves like this, if they can actually deliver on it, because that's an interesting shift, I think.
I mean, we have one OS that's serving ads in your OS that you paid for. And then we have one OS that is touting, how to do this end-to-end encrypted, like,
Yeah,
to
I mean,
Bob's
there's
point,
a
like,
clear
only visible to
winner.
the processor. Like, the paths are pretty far apart at this point. And then also, now this is an unfair statement, but factually, as we talk about Microsoft government issues, like, there's even more information in the last week about the Microsoft breaches of late, but also, like, their threat surface area is, insanely higher, like, to be fair, right? But
Sure.
they're having a bad time and not optically or technically getting a handle on it.
Yeah. It
So
seems
there's
to, it keeps spiraling.
Yeah, so there's not, like, we still don't feel like we've reached bottom on that. So, like, there's not a way to start feeling like we're building confidence back up. So yeah, like, yeah, the timing is interesting.
I am actually hoping that this goes one step beyond just what Apple is doing for itself, and they actually market servers like this. Like, can you imagine having a server and an operating system with a way to deploy whatever your app you need to put on that in a secure fashion so that it is finally maybe a secure platform, and maybe it will reduce attack surface? Like Apple this could be a initial step into a foray of, like, perhaps helping everything be more secure in the long term, which would be kind of cool.
Would it I mean, a lot of the Apple um hesitancy or market share for large government, like governments and stuff, has been cost. So I wonder if, like, how much is that going to play into this? Because Apple servers were a thing for a while. Um, so can Apple get the cost down, or can Apple prove the true cost of not doing it this way, in a way that convinces these large uh contracts and stuff, because that's going to be a key player. Because I don't know that when you get to that kind of a cost difference that governments are going to like care as much, honestly.
So Philip has a good Philip. There are no dumb questions. That's you don't want to do that with me. So and does Microsoft have a competitor in the enterprise IT space? And Patrick says Linux, and I guess to a degree, especially in the EU, that's true because
But Microsoft runs Linux now, right?
there are more government
Stop.
or entities. There are more government entities in the EU migrating all this stuff over, and then there are a lot of organizations following suit, primarily in the EU. I have not seen that kind of migration at all in like, here and in like Fortune 1000 organizations at all. I don't see a move to Linux, at least on, there will never be a year of the Linux desktop, folks. Just you can keep forgetting that. It's not going to happen. But like
Next year.
no, never. But server wise, like pretty much everything is kind of that. And I don't know how many people would choose to run a Windows server over a Linux server now. I guess that does still happen. But I guess it still probably is like the king of the hill when it comes to like what's on. Yeah.
So one reason people choose Windows though is because they don't have a choice, because they need telemetry tool. They need like, they're in some kind of corporate ecosystem that needs like, we have to have an agent, this agent on this box that collects this telemetry, like all of these like.
Oh no, they have Windows laptops and desktops because like CIOs get steak dinners from Microsoft and Lenovo and places like that. So
okay, I will buy a steak dinner for someone if they just switch. I don't know. Just kidding. I take that back.
So you said something really interesting earlier about Tim Cook, Glenn, and I want to bridge off of that if I can, because in the Washington Post, there was a great interview with Mr. Cook. Mr. Cook is not always a good human in terms of commentary that he makes, but in this one, it was the CEO that didn't lie, and that's just right now that's hard to find. And so he gets asked, what's your confidence that Apple Intelligence will not hallucinate? And it's not 100%, but I think we have done everything that we know to do, including thinking very deeply about the readiness of the technology in the areas that we are using it in. So I'm confident it will be very high quality, but I'd say in all honesty, that's short of 100%. I would never claim that it's 100%. Now, like, let's be clear, like Apple Intelligence, part of it's going to be making cool like emojis. So like, I don't know. Fine, hallucinate all you want to when you're don't put anything inappropriate in the emoji, but apart from that,
Bob, touch on hallucination as a word for AI usage.
Yeah, we're gonna jump into that. So I just wanted to, before I do that, your reaction to an honest CEO. Both of you, any reactions to an honest CEO?
Does that surprise Pikachu?
Yeah, memoji with like shocked face. Is that a good description?
I mean, I love this. I feel like he kind of got a little bit of pushback from people being like, what do you mean it's not 100%? What do you mean you can't guarantee? Well, no, because that's not how it works. Like, this is great. Good. Yeah. Be honest.
There's too many images of humans with 6 fingers to say that AI does not hallucinate.
I don't know why, but I definitely thought you were about to say something about too many cooks in the kid, and I was like, please don't make that joke. And now I've inadvertently made a joke, and I don't.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
Well, all right. So to Glenn's point, I have a problem with the word hallucinate, and I'm not the only person with a problem with that. There's
I meant like just define it first, because I don't know.
So hallucinate means like basically it's going to produce an answer that is not what you expected it to be. Can be somewhat random, could have nothing to do with what actually was out there. Can like feel like it's a dream sequence out of like someone that's been smoking a lot of weed or something lately. It basically just does not provide the answer.
AI trip.
Yeah,
or like it can be what it thinks you want to hear.
Yes.
Like you can kind of bully it into, I'm using these very human terms, but you can essentially corral it into, into giving you the answers. And this paper talks about that, which I don't want to.
Bob, so you shared something in Slack this morning. I don't know if it's in this presentation this morning, but it's a great example of hallucination. The scissors, is that in this today?
It is not in this, but this, okay. So just to really quickly describe this, every week now, someone's Googling something, and what's weird is I'm gonna, I don't know if this is a complaint, I don't know what it is, because I don't use Google search anymore unless I'm trying to mimic one of these searches someone does, and I don't get the AI thing in the Google searches. Like I don't see the AI stuff at the top that that's the AI answer for. I don't know if I've disabled that or whatever, but like I don't see
It
that,
knows.
and I feel left out, Just saying. But anyway, so someone did like running with scissors is a good exercise thing, and like Google said yes, it absolutely is. That's not hallucination though. That is it picking the most
Choosing
favorited thing from
violence.
A
Reddit.
Reddit comment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it choosing the
We'll
most
talk about that
popular
too.
Reddit comment. Yeah.
And we'll get to that.
Yeah. So we are going to try to keep this episode without an explicit content because I think if I say the word, it actually has to be that. So I'm not going to say the word. I'm going to say BS.
Oh.
Sorry, Glenn. Glenn wants this to be a foul-mouthed, terrible podcast, but I will not let him. Every week, it's terrible. It's just you should hear him in the prep. It's the mouth. So this paper, ChatGPT is BS, is phenomenal. Emily actually brought this to all of our attention. Just to really quickly do this, it argues that the inaccuracies produced by large language models like ChatGPT should be understood as BS rather than hallucinations or in fact lies. But we're going to talk about lies in a minute too. BS is defined as speech or text produced with indifference to truth, lacking any concern for accurately representing reality. And as we've explained before, I think the way that these LLMs work, it's picking the next most probable token, which then eventually becomes a word that it spits back to you, or if it's an image, it tries to combine stuff to make it into there. These authors distinguish between soft BS, which is an indifference to truth, and hard BS, intentionally misleading the audience about the speaker's agenda. And they argue that ChatGPT, at a minimum, produces soft BS since it's not designed to convey truth, but to basically generate plausible sounding text. And however, if you read further in the paper, they suggest that ChatGPT may produce hard BS if its function to imitate human speech is seen as an intention to deceive about its true agenda or not caring about the truth. We're going to talk more about lies later too again. And so just stop using the word hallucination. First of all, it anthropomorphizes something that we should not. This is not AGI. This isn't general intelligence. It's not smart. It's just random numbers being picked to do the next thing. And it's because it implies that it's failing, is trying to, but failing to perceive reality. It doesn't care about reality. It doesn't know what truth is. And the authors also argue that BS framing is more accurate and avoids these implications that could lead to misguided efforts to try to improve the truthfulness, because you just can't do that. So I just wanted to so this is another link. So we will try to get this in the show notes too. Dr. Angela Collier, and AI doesn't exist, but it will ruin everything anyway. It's an hour-long rant from a physicist, and if Todd says to watch it, you should watch it. So that's
I hope it's a Rickroll link.
Oh, actually, Google disabled public access, like the Rickroll link broke this week, by the way. Like YouTube broke the actual Rickroll
Interesting.
this week. It's not great. However, so curious, like, are you going to stop using the word hallucinate, Emily, with regard to these things, or did you ever really use the word hallucinate?
I am so ready to trash that word in this context. I think so. Yes, I mean, I think we've all used it because it is kind of like common parlance. But I think this paper does a good job of explaining sort of why it's probably not the best way to talk about it, right? Like, it's a little bit euphemistic too, right? In addition to anthropomorphizing this sort of a large language model, right, that has no feelings or thoughts or intent. It also is a little bit, it's like, oh, it's just hallucinating. But like, if you actually, so there's some interesting examples in this paper. And one that that stood out to me was when asked to produce evidence for its claims of these about papers regarding biological topics. It provided 5 references dating to the early 2000s, but none of the provided paper titles existed, and all of the PubMed IDs were from unrelated papers. And so this is always, and like I've anecdotally experienced this too, where I'll be like, can you tell me where you found this? Can you give me examples of this? And you kind of push on it in an area where you know that you have the expertise. And you go and you're like, oh, this doesn't line up. And I think far too many people probably don't do that. But I don't necessarily think that's harmless either, right? When you're thinking about the context in which people are using these types of technology, you can't take it at face value, and it's beyond a hallucination. It is BS. And I think we can kind of argue about whether it's sort of hard or soft, but there's kind of this intent to deceive or intent to convince you of something, whether or not it's the truth, right? Like, it doesn't know, it doesn't care, it doesn't have any sense of the truth. it's just using what it knows to give you the next best token, right? Like that's kind of what we're getting at here. So I love this paper. I love it.
And we know how well society has been at distinguishing BS from not BS prior to the explosion of AI, right? So there's not a lot of, like, so this is random and off the top of my head, but we talk about like, oh, phishing, like you have to train the users, it's all the users' fault and all that crap, right? Which is not right, but whatever. So this is kind of another example of humans who are just trying to get by, get their thing done or whatever. They just want an answer and to move on. This is not going to bode well for that same audience, right? Humans aren't really, most people are not in the weeds enough to want to see the source, understand the truth, verify or whatever, and are going to action off of these things. So talk about like needing warning labels or full understanding of this technology, or extreme case like a license to use AI to know that you're going into it with a understanding of how wrong it can be and how far off it can misguide you.
I actually like that, like having to have a license to use this stuff versus.
I mean, you have to have one for a drone anymore to fly. I mean, it's
Yeah,
a short
commercially.
YouTube thing. Well, even like depending on where you are privately, like it's kind of a
Mm,
so even if it's a I don't know, like
a
let's
test that you
let's
get
take our
Chat GPT to
fishing
help you cheat with or cheat on.
let's take our fishing awareness resources and reallocate them to AI awareness, and we'd be better off.
Yeah,
Would
I don't
we?
disagree with that. I actually, when I do my CISO classes twice a year, I do encourage them to have an entire like forget because the phishing training is dumb anyway. Like basically just teach people like what the problems are with all the tools that they might want to use like this and other ones as well out there. So
See, if you learn how to use AI, then you can have AI tell you if it's a fish. Two birds.
but I'm ching.
Two
So
fish.
is it really BS or is it also actually lying? So this is
Yes.
from the Futurism blog, and they take a look at two papers. One is deception abilities emerged in large language models, published on June 4th, and when was this? I don't have the published date, but it's recent. It's 2024, and this is AI deception: a survey of examples, risks, and potential solutions. So basically, they took a look at GPT-4 and Meta Cicero, and GPT-4 was found to deceive human evaluators over 99% of the time in simple test scenarios exhibiting Machiavellianism or intentional and amoral deception. Meta's Cicero model, which was designed for the game diplomacy, outmaneuvered human opponents by lying, breaking agreements, and telling falsehoods, becoming a master of deception with the game context. And while the studies don't demonstrate LLMs can lie of their own accord, they do. These are both great papers to read if you want to see how these things could be misused to, as Glenn was sort of indicating, like manipulate the public or manipulate views on various things that are out there. Oh, we're not that. So how concerned are you two with the potential for these new power? These are getting very powerful, these models. And it's like how concerned are you guys with the potential for people to be abusing them this way?
I mean, like, yes. I don't even have a like more cohesive answer to that. I mean, I think the example of using a model to play diplomacy is brilliant because that's exactly what you're doing in diplomacy, right? Is kind of lying and sort of deceiving other players in the game. But I mean, of course, this is a concern. I mean, I combined with the fact that many folks who are using like I went to a get together at a neighbor's house a couple weeks ago, and there was someone there talking about how he uses Chat GPT all the time and all his emails and all these things, and I was like, oh, but wait, and he was like, no, it's great, it just like solves all my problems and it does all these things, and I was like, oh man, this is how people are really using this. Like people aren't fact checking, people aren't, and so if with these models that are already kind of like Chat GPT, right? Like it's not intentionally necessarily trying to deceive folks. Throw something in front of people that is. I mean, is anybody going to know the difference? Are they going to check? Like, I don't have high hopes.
Yeah, I wonder, like, part of it maybe is because the evolution of looking for answers on the internet has been, things get published, search engines find it and crawl it. We've all, like, as you basically working in IT is just learning how to Google things very well and precisely and critically, right? So the human understanding of the internet, like the muggle understanding of the internet, has been searching, something's published. So if it's published, it's true or true-ish. Then search engines crawl it, and then you learn how to ask a search engine for an answer, and then you have to read a bunch of things to find an answer that you kind of come up with on your own based on however many samples that you read. And now this has evolved to where it gives such a definitive feeling answer with the user doing such little work and validation that the muggle thinks this is it. This is the end of the line. This is all knowing, whatever. And I know we're going to talk a little bit about training these things in a second, but that understanding, I think, is what is a big missing piece as far as when people use AI. This is unsupervised. Like you're asking a question and you're getting an answer that has been zero, like reviewed by zero humans, zero uh anything, like standards, whatever. Like you get your answer. You asked, you get an answer. And the only way to know if it's true or not is for you to dig deeper.
And if you're
So
already
to Bob's
using
question,
ChatGPT to do that, like, you're probably not gonna spend the time validating it because you're probably
yeah.
using it to save time.
So here's something that might terrify the audience, and I don't even know if Bob and Emily, you realize this because it's just I can't even wrap my head around it. So in Texas, where I unfortunately am located, they have this year their state testing. There was a writing test. I don't know the grade. I can't remember all the details. But anyway, the writing section of the state test, who graded
No.
that this year?
No.
AI. AI. AI graded the writing portion of the standardized state test. And if you, as a parent, or I guess student, but parent on behalf of the student, have a problem with it, you can pay $50 and then have a human go reassess it.
Okay, I have a lot of questions. So
Yeah,
was there any like, did they test this in, like, a pilot
I,
program
I,
before?
I don't know. I don't know,
Okay.
but it just kind of appeared out of nowhere, as far as I know.
Okay.
So yeah. Oh, thanks, Todd. Yep.
Interesting. Okay.
Texas Tribune,
Wow.
by the way, support them if I can give a shout out
I
to them.
I actually subscribe. I don't read it, but I subscribe to the Texas Tribune just so that
They are
there's actually facts
amazing.
being presented in Texas.
Yeah. But anyway, I digress. I took that really into a wrong direction.
No, you
Sorry.
didn't. It's fine. And Todd also did point out, like, this has been a thing bopping around for a couple months now, but like, it's not untrue. Like, people are using ChatGPT and stuff like it to generate like long, stupid things. Then it's also reading them and summarizing
There's
them.
two
And we're
Furbies talking to each other by the time
yeah,
you get to the end of an email chain.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's not good.
horrifying.
Yeah, it's what's happening though, which is why I never send email or read email because like it's not
Can't
good.
get fished if you don't read your email.
That's exact.
Well,
Mm.
don't check your text messages either, but
So we
We're
took
getting
this journey.
unhinged.
We took this journey because it started with like the cool security stuff with Apple, but because of Tim Cook's and whatever, I wanted to just walk us on this whole journey of stuff because like this is unfortunately LLM's AI is not going away despite some of us trying to make it go away.
Save us, Apple.
It is just not going to go away. So I wanted to shed a bit more light for folks that are out there. There's one more thing that I also felt compelled to throw into this as a result of taking this walk down AI lane, which is everybody says this, and I'm guilty of it too, and I need to stop. Which is why this is to me first before anybody else, and we all need to stop saying, "Hey, like that's ChatGPT's trained on the internet," because that's not true anymore. That's where like, but there's a whole corpus of like things that it was trained on initially. Internet was part of that, like some of the common crawl stuff and some like books and books like libraries of books and whatever before, but it's not true anymore. And I don't have the link up right now, but if anyone just whatever search engine you use, don't make it Google, but whatever, like type in Trail of Bits blog, go to the most recent post on there. They do a great job walking through some of the stuff Apple, like trying to dissect what actually goes into Apple's AI stuff, but they talk about some of the training data as well too. They're phenomenal. The Trailbits folks are just absolutely phenomenal humans. And this is a great post by Alan Pike on LLMs aren't just trained on the internet anymore. And I wanted to talk about that because these ultra modern LLMs, like they have grown in since November of 2022. That's when we first got experience with these things. So major AI labs have hit a data wall where simply training on more internet data provides diminishing returns. And to improve the LLMs, they are now acquiring and creating custom training data beyond just websites. Before I go through the really quickly through the bullets, this is one reason why Microsoft was throwing recall on the PCs. And I know all the stuff was happening locally. Sure, it was Microsoft. I personally believe that Microsoft was getting this rolled out to everyone's thing, and they want you to use it everywhere and all their stuff, whatever, because they need all that data and they know that data for training and improving their models and whatever on there. So I think it's actually a skeezy end run around your privacy and everything for that. But that's just my
Well,
opinion
even
on
if they
Microsoft.
were, even if the data was local, they would be able to use telemetry to understand how well the model is working,
And what
know,
you're
as
using
far
it
as
for and
tuning
things
and
like
stuff.
that too. Yeah, and what you're using it for.
Yeah,
too,
so
yeah.
like metadata is often more valuable than the actual data. So
Yeah. So the training is now not just the websites. There's annotating and filtering the existing data that's going into the model. So adding more metadata, if you will, Glenn, to the existing data that they've already been trained on. They're using us, so we are now slaves to the LLMs by using our ratings to fine tune the models. That's called our RLHF. We're not going to go into the detailed stuff on those things here. Incorporating usage data from deployed models. So again, more metadata for Glenn there. Acquiring proprietary data like emails, reports, etc., which they are buying up, and generating synthetic training data with LLMs. And I wanted to nerd out a bit, just real quickly with Emily on this one. Glenn, you're welcome to join in too. So I keep asking you how concerned you are, Emily, because I value your opinion. Like this, I'm terrified of this. Like, how concerned are you of this, especially that last bullet?
So the synthetic data piece is really fascinating to me. And I believe there's actually an example in that blog post from Alan Pike. I'm trying to find it now, but where essentially, there are gaps that scraping the web has left us with in terms of training data for these large models, right? And some of the things they point out, or that you pointed out, were like emails or written communications, things that aren't necessarily data breaches, but aren't usually public, aren't meant to be public. But one of the examples that's given in that blog is 50,000 examples of PhDs expressing thoughtful uncertainty when asked questions they don't know the answer to. And that's fascinating to me. And I'm very interested in sort of how they've identified these gaps in what they've been able to glean from sort of like partnering with Reddit or just like scraping the web or things like that, and figuring out sort of like, okay, well, what do we need to augment these models? So I'm really fascinated and also kind of weirded out by it. It's also very it's expensive to do this, like to generate this data. And I also feel like, if you're a company who's purchasing this synthetic data, right? How are you validating or verifying those inputs? Like if you're getting 50,000, rows of data, are you manually inspecting each one to make sure it's not doing something, or to make sure that it aligns with the type of data you want to feed in? Like, where does that part come in the process? Because that's the thing that kind of weirds me out. And like, who's checking on the synthetic data, basically? Like, who's making sure it's okay? And that concerns me.
Yeah, because like the one area that there's a tuning parameter, and maybe more folks have becoming familiar with some of the terminology than not, but it's called temperature, and it basically defines the randomness that the algorithm is going to use to go through the matrices and grab all the next tokens that are out there. You can set it to like actually 0, which will give you a repeatable answer every single time. If you play with any local LLMs, you should. I encourage everyone to try to do that if you can. With Apple, you probably will be able to do it a lot easier than with some of the other ones. But basically, give it a shot because it's great because you get actually repeatable answers. It's awesome. But like, how trustworthy are all these places that are providing synthetic data? Because are they just dialing the random up so that everything looks like it's different all the time? And like, how good is this going to be? There's one of my big pet peeves is Medium, like the actual blog posting like platform.
Is anything real on Medium
Yeah,
anymore?
not anymore. So that's the thing. Like, so I was tracking for a while. Now I just don't bother because like literally almost everything on Medium is written by an LLM. There's very few decent things on there. And if you do have a Medium blog, don't like I don't respect you if you have a Medium blog. And but they're like that is synthetic data. Like that's going into future LLMs and as a real thing. Who knows what's on there? And then there's all sorts of like there was a great post. There's a podcast I listened to on the media, and there was a great interview about a month or two ago with someone who is basically a content farmer, and he generates stories every single day across a number of websites that just populated with these LLMs just to get clicks and basically add stuff or whatever on there. And that's all going into the training data as well too. And that's all technically synthetic data too. And I think this is going to cause a real problem down the line. And I'm wondering how Apple's going to deal with that because they're dealing with the same kind of training corpuses that everyone else is and how they're going to filter this and make it work well too. So I think we might see AI kill itself because of the way that the companies are doing all these things with regard to that.
It's a good time to be in the storage business. The data storage business.
Absolutely is. So I know you two know the answer, but maybe fake that you don't. So how much money is being spent every year on this training and advancements?
So much. So
$1,
much money.
Bob.
All right, we'll just do it. So labs are paying over, as Glenn noted earlier in our pre-show, like not us, but labs are paying
Not Gray Noise Labs.
over $1 billion
Sorry,
per year to have humans, like academics, professionals, create entirely new high-quality training data to fill gaps that the internet data cannot. We are feeding a machine that's destroying the environment, that's doing all sorts of terrible things, and wow, I just can't believe that we're.
I feel like I need to call out for just 1 second. Like, AI is not all bad. Like, there are practical, usable, like huge efficiency gaining operations and decisions that AI has been remarkably good at making. And they're usually pattern recognition, or they're more tangible, right? Like they're here's a data set, tell me some things about this data set. Where we're kind of going awry or going on our rants with the AI is scaring the bejesus out of us is when AI is unsupervised with unsupervised data and making decisions for everyday life or everyday people who are not understanding of how this gets farmed. Like, I just kind of want to be clear, like, we're not saying all of it's trash. There are very good, very, very good uses of it. But
yeah, I mean, our show, but like we are upfront about this. Our show notes come from AI.
Yeah.
And the closing statement that I read now every week is
and we use AI for Sift. Like Sift is a big AI part of our company.
And it's a different kind of it's not an well, we actually do use some LLM-ish stuff in Sift as well too. But it's all like Daniel spent a lot of time and working with the team as well to make sure that we're asking it the right questions in the right way to do the right thing as well too.
And we gave it the data. Like it's
That's the difference, right? Though, like, I feel like there's that responsible use and there's sort of well, it's a cool tool and I'm going to use it and there's no harm that can come to me. Like, I think that's
we need an organic label. The Gray Noise, the SIF data is organic.
Oh gosh.
That's really funny.
Pesticide
Certified
free.
Fresh.
Yeah, pesticide free.
Wow.
Ethical use.
All right, so we have now strayed from the security topic. We started off with AI, and we're going to bring it all back to security now because Hemija, I've been informed it was actually Hemija's pen that wrote the blog post, wrote an amazing blog post that I would like Emily, if possible. So I'm going to add it to the stage. And Emily, if you need me to bring up the actual blog post itself too, if you just want to talk through it, that's fine. CVE 2024-4577. It's a PHP vulnerability. Y'all did some really cool stuff on that. Before I let you do yours, I'm also just going to go really quickly. We have Glenn's going to talk about a post that Constantine in our labs team also did on this as well too for the stuff that we were seeing.
There was no collusion for the record.
I missed this whole thing last week because I was like not plugged into anything for a change. It was great. I feel bad because this is really cool stuff. So I read both. And we just had to cover this as like another main topic because of how cool this is. So Emily, if you could start us off with, and again, I can bring up the thing if you need me to bring it up for anything.
No, I think I'm good. I also just want to say I'm so sad that Himija isn't here this week because I really like she did such a wonderful job like digging into this and spearheading this investigation. So I just want to echo like the shout out to her for like rounding this up. Um so Bob kind of mentioned CVE 2024-4577. It's a critical RCE affecting all versions of PHP. And it allowed unauthenticated attackers, or allows rather, to execute arbitrary code on vulnerable PHP servers with a couple of specific configurations. One is that you're running PHP under CGI mode, or two, that you are exposing the PHP binary and the CGI directory. And that's a default configuration in XAMPP. Is it XAMPP? XAMPP? I actually have never said it out loud.
I say XAMPP. I don't know.
Okay, I was like, I'm gonna read this. So this is a whole thing, right? Like that's interesting in and of itself. But what's starting to get really interesting is this ransomware group starting to abuse this vulnerability. And at Census, this is fascinating to us because we don't really get to see ransomware because it usually affects endpoints, things that aren't on the public internet, right? Like we get one ransomware incident a year at this point. 2022, it was Deadbolt. 2023, it was ESXi ARGs. And this year, it is, apparently, it's this one. And so the blog post walks through essentially like how this works and sort of the timeline. But essentially what happens from a public facing perspective is once these devices are, or once these hosts are infected, it transforms this original directory listing sort of empty to an open directory that contains a README file that's the ransom note. And we found several different ransom notes associated with this particular wave of exploitation. So README 9, README 10, and README 11. There's also this interesting note that like the Bitcoin address is in the ransom note. So we can also track the payments here, which is always kind of a fun thing to do. The payment that they're asking for, like 0.1 Bitcoin's not really a lot. It's like $6,500, right? Like not a ton. It's not nothing, but it's also not, what we're seeing in the hundreds of thousands or millions types of ransoms, right? So as of, I think it was last week when we initially published, we saw about 1,000 compromised hosts online. They're mostly in China. And this has to do with China and Japan's language settings that have the particular configuration that is vulnerable to this RCE. So just a really interesting dig into this internet-facing ransomware, being able to kind of track the ransom notes, track the Bitcoin addresses, tracking the infections. And there's also some historical evidence of past notes that Himija also found. So we didn't dig super deeply into those, but I think there's some interesting stuff there, right? Like you can go back anytime you can find like the initial sign of something, sign of compromise, sign of exploit, like that early version of something. And there's a thought that this actually might have been related to this November 2023 wave of exploitation around ActiveMQ by the same ransomware group Tell You to Pass. So like kind of a neat thread there. But just an interesting investigation all around. I feel like I kind of was all over the place with that description. But I'm very curious, like from your end, what you all kind of saw and observed around this particular wave of attack.
Yeah, Glenn, do you want to take a bit to
Yeah.
go into and if you need me to bring up anything, I will bring up stuff.
No, I can just talk. I think I'll just talk through it because mostly it's long form. It wouldn't be too helpful, I don't think. But yeah, so Constantine on the team spent some time last week kind of digging into what we see on this side of it, right? Like that's kind of the fun thing with Census and Gray Noises. We have different viewpoints, and we've been doing a thing lately. Actually, there's going to be another. Well, I'll come back to that. We've been doing a thing lately where we follow up on these bigger vulns, maybe a week later or so, to see what quote is actually happening, what is coming to fruition, because between the network sensor architecture that we have, the new sensors that we're rolling out and getting more and more quantity online of, we're seeing more and more of the actual happening, because there's always, the early vuln cycle, hype cycle of, this could happen, RCE, blah, blah, blah. And then we want to know, like, all right, it's been a week. What have people done? what are we missing? What's changed? What did we get right or wrong about this prediction, etc. So Constantine dug into this PHP vuln that we're talking about last week, and really just put up a blog of a lot. The first part of it is what Emily was saying. The very specific versions that are affected. It is a bad vuln. It is a simple vuln. However, it is kind of limited by many caveats, including the language setting and stuff as far as the surface area of it. So, impact wise, kind of a meh-ish situation. But we do have Constantine did dig into, some of the payloads, what they extract, the IPs they go to. And for gray noise, a lot of our data is currently is the source IP, the IP, it's IP centric, and we're slowly pivoting to more holistic than that, because it's not all just about the IPs. So what IPs are in the payloads? What are the payloads actually doing and reaching out to for you to do some hunting? And so the blog goes into four examples of payloads that they kind of give you some follow-on activity. So you can use that to try and do some C2 hunting, or some file system artifact hunting, or whatever, something that might be able to help you in your organization's investigations for what might have been affected by this. But it's been interesting. This was super scary hyped at the beginning. It's kind of flattened off because of the caveats that we mentioned. But Orange Shy had this call out too, and Constantine puts it in the blog. But kind of expect to see more vulns in this like sliver of prerequisites to come out, in the near future. So it's a good read.
Yeah, I just between both of them, like they were just really they got me up to speed on something that I completely missed last week. So it was just great, and I do love the fact that you were again, Emily, you guys were able to see the evidence of this. Just it was just this is
It's
just
so
yeah,
rare, and I
it's
hate that
great.
it happened, but I love
No, it's
when this
awesome.
happens because
Yeah,
we
it's
can see
awesome.
it.
No, it's awesome. It was great.
So
It's awesome. So we're going to quickly blow through tool time here. Basically, I wanted to put this out there. It's a relatively new Golang library and reverse proxy server called Finger Proxy. Why it's called that is it adds J3, J4, Akamai HTTP2 fingerprints, and you can configure it to add more. It's really, really, really easy to configure to add other payload fingerprints or whatever, however else you want to generate fingerprints for the incoming requests, and then sends it down to the actual like web server for processing, which means you could use this as a front end. And with the burgeoning amount of new J4 signatures coming out that can identify scanners and census and other things, you could use that to customize content that you want to throw back to them, or just not serve content to certain things that come your way. Really cool stuff, and we might play with that for doing some things internally here, but I wanted to throw that out there for other folks to go see and to go use. We actually might have John on in the next like July or August timeframe to talk more about JA4 as well, just straight from Fox.io, because like we're using it, and a lot of other folks are beginning to use it as well too. I do need to call out that this is something that has been load tested. Unfortunately, it's being load tested by a Web3 ecosystem, like the like blockchain garbage, all that stuff out there, but it can handle loads. So definitely check this out if you're looking to be able to do anything with those fingerprints. And for our tag roundup, we did have a few tags last week as well. The Serve You one, there's a new blog post coming out probably today or tomorrow from Ron and our team that's going to go into a deep dive on it too. But I also want to take just a step back that we're about halfway through the year, and we are about to hit the same number of tags at this point in time as we did the entire year last year. So shout out to the team, shout out to SIFT. They're all just crazy talented folks, and I can't wait to see what this looks like at the end of the year, because I think it's just going to get better as we switch to some new tagging systems that we're going to be talking a lot more about in the next month or two. And I also wanted to point out that there are 3 tags that are related to telnet backdoors on routers that people may be using. And we're seeing a threat actor. It looks like it's just one threat actor coming from a bunch of different places. Oddly enough, like you not using many US hosts to do this internet scanning for these routers. So be prepared for a new botnet to be popping up. And I don't know, like I guess the one question I just want to ask you two on this one, how how am I gonna put this? This is a telnet backdoor on 3 routers that, like, most of these have been known for a while. Like, how many are really still susceptible to this? Come on, like, someone give me a positive answer to this, please.
You know there's no
Mhm.
positive answer to that.
Yeah. Don't set us up like that.
But
I
how
love
can-
being positive or
but
trying
how,
to.
but how
But
can it?
no.
How?
I mean, we've been covering how like these smaller router, like these essentially routers are having a moment and it's just continuing. Like, I don't know what's gonna happen come Black Hat DEF CON week,
Oh
but
gosh. Oh
I don't feel
gosh.
great about it.
I don't either. Just be prepared to have to defend against more botnets and whatever this group is going to be doing. Hopefully
When
we'll get
does
some
the
more information.
organization like security posture IT management teams have to extend their footprint into like MDM checks on the home router version and firmware to ensure the security of their remote employees connecting to their corporate network? Godspeed.
Oh gosh. All right. And we do need to talk about Kev. I did not check if there's a new one. If you guys could do that while I say that it's been 5 days, as it has been 5 days. Has it still been 5 days? Glenn, has it still been 5 days?
I wasn't
Good.
ready. I think it's still been 5 days.
It's still been 5 days. There was a bunch. Our fave 4577 we just talked about. A bunch of other ones as well too. Telerik obviously is in there because why not? Why actually make Telerik actually secure, and Android stuff as well because Android's garbage. So it's what's in there too. So that's good. And thankfully there isn't one for now. So there you go. We did it. We actually got through that whole. I'm actually really surprised we got through that whole thing.
Me too.
Tim Cook has to save us is all I got.
Whew. I don't know if we can count on that, but or we could just all stop using computers, which was nice for last week. We didn't use a whole lot of compute power last week with the fam, so that was kind of nice.
That sounds lovely.
Limited to taking pictures of my grandkids on the tiny rectangle versus anything else, which was kind of cool. So. Alrighty then. Well, thank you two for joining me as always, and thank you Overwatch for doing such a great job getting everything set up. And to wrap up this episode of Grey Knight Stormwatch, let's leave you with a thought. In the ever-evolving landscape of cybersecurity, staying informed is your best defense. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, whether it's AI hallucinations or the latest vulnerabilities, we've got you covered. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and we'll catch you in the next storm. Goodbye for now. Catch you next week.